Let's laugh as we watch the demise. I have this tweet from Leftism for You.
What?
Just another day in New York City.
Insane.
At Bell Fries in NYC, some women got angry that extra sauce cost, I think it was $1.50, and so they just ransacked the whole place, jumping over, smashing everything, attacking people, and just destroying everything. Why is there so many videos like this? Something is happening in places like New York. Get out of the city is the only thing I can say. The official story apparently, $1.75. Women destroy Manhattan business, leaving employees bloodied for $1.75. Couldn't get their extra sauce. What's happening?
People are disarmed and unable to defend themselves. The first thing I saw when I watched this video, I was thinking about it from the person's perspective that was being attacked and having their business destroyed, or whoever they were. What if they were armed and they fired at the attackers? Would that have been justified?
They go to jail.
Yeah, in New York, you could have a major problem. I personally know somebody who had if the governor himself didn't get involved in New Jersey, it would have went a lot different for him. And that was defending himself and his wife against an attacker. They wanted him to use equal force in his own home.
Wow.
Came home from work, but he didn't use equal force, or at least attempt to.
That's an insane concept.
It's crazy. It's
what
crazy.
Define equal force?
Exactly.
How do you know if the guy in front of you is a black belt or not?
Right.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA. Oh, well, officer, I shot him because I saw his ears. He had cauliflower ears. That justified equal force, right? How do you have no idea? When we had, back when I was in Jersey, we had a crazy pedo guy try to break in. And, he's like, tell my story. And like, we hear, it's like 3 a.m. I call the cops. I'm like, yo. And the cop said to me, he's like, if it were me, I'd answer the door with a shotgun. And I was like, okay. So I went on my journey trying to figure out how to get a gun. It was very difficult. I was lied to left and right. Finally figured out how to get one. And then I was told, basically the way it was broken down to me, if you're in your house, someone breaks in New Jersey, you have to flee your home.
Yeah.
You have to jump out the window or whatever, get away. You can't, only if you're cornered. And then I'm like, okay, how do you define cornered? I don't know. You're going to get arrested. You're going to get charged with murder. And then you're going to argue to the jury why it wasn't actually murder.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, so a guy can break to my house and I can't defend myself without getting charged with felonies and arrested. That's right. I'm leaving this day. That's what I said. I'm out.
In this case, it was he was being he was messed up. He was being brutally assaulted with a piece of firewood that was by the fireplace. The guy just took it and just started, viciously beating him over the head with it, cracking his face. So he was a plumber, and he took one of the box cutter knives. He still had his tool belt on. He came home from work, and he found the guy in there with his wife and assaulting her.
Wow.
And he was not as strong as the guy. So the guy was on top of him, hitting him with wood. He took a box cutter. They arrested him, charged him. He had to later demonstrate that he was...
This is New Jersey, right?
Yes.
This is the annoying thing, because I had a lot of people say to me, no, Tim, you're wrong. New Jersey's partial castle doctrine. You can defend yourself in your own home.
No, it's not.
It's crazy that anyone would think New Jersey, what do they call it? One of the evil 7? That's what gun owners call them. Would allow this. No. You're in your home. And so the way the house we had was set up is my room, there's no way out. You jump out the window from the second floor. So if someone broke in, I'm like, I got one path. I have no choice. So I see someone breaking in my house, and I'm supposed to stop and try and discern, do they have a weapon? Are they going to attack me in my own home? I guess I'll just wait and find out. That's New Jersey for you.
You need the governor to come in and try to basically help you based on the castle doctrine rule. No lawyer is going to walk into a court and argue that to get you off. It was crazy. And that story has a really tragic ending, by the way.
Really?
Oh, the whole family was destroyed over it.
Wow.
It was just terrible.
West Virginia is a bit different.
A little bit.
West Virginia, it's actually kind of crazy. Depending on who you ask, obviously you want to be reasonable. Right. But if you're out on your property in the middle of the night and someone's trespassing on your land, you are in many circumstances justified in using lethal force against them. Now, not entirely. It depends on standing your ground. Someone's trespassing. You have no assumption, like you have no duty to make assumptions about who they are, what they're doing. If they're on your property late at night and you feel threatened. Now, if it's during the day and you see someone walking on your land, you have to be like, hey, get off. Leave now or else. But Maryland's a bit better. Not that great. Not much better than New Jersey. So we've talked about all this stuff. In Maryland, you don't have a duty to retreat from your home, but you do have a duty to retreat to your home. So if you're outside and someone starts walking on the property, you have to tell them to leave. If they don't, You go into your house.
Go inside. Okay.
If they then try to enter, you are justified in using force. And I think the reason this probably happens is because Maryland, although it is still a very awful gun rights state, you still have Western Maryland, which wants to be West Virginia. In West Virginia, it's basically, were you reasonable in trying to avoid harm? You don't have to retreat to your house. It's your property. We're not going to make assumptions. And that makes sense too. And the issue is, in West Virginia, your property is probably a big piece of land.
Yeah.
So if you're on
different situation.
Right, if you're on 10 acres of open land and you're, doing something on your property, you can't necessarily retreat to your house. So that's why it's a bit different. But West Virginia is a bit better. And then you get like Texas.
And Florida. Florida's
Texas
pretty good
and Florida
too.
are basically like make my day laws or something like
Yeah,
that.
make my day. You're basically somebody's walking on your yard, they don't respond. You're good to put one in their left cheek at least.
Yikes,
I mean, it's but again, there have been pushes in the last 10 years, especially. Saw it with Trayvon Martin. That was a national case. They tried to come after the stand your ground, but George Zimmerman was acquitted because he was in that case. It's a perfect example.
They lied
He
about
felt
everything.
like he was he had a reasonable fear that his life was in danger.
Well, he was on the ground.
He was getting his
being
head beaten
punched in the
Yeah,
face repeatedly.
That's right.
And the media lied about everything.
As they always do.
And then you actually ended up seeing this in the surveillance footage. One, we learned Zimmerman was a Mexican guy, and his face was bloodied up.
I remember that.
That was that Zimmerman was following Trayvon Martin, and then Martin was like, "Hey, stop following me!" And the guy was like, "I have a reason to suspect you're doing something." And then Trayvon jumped on him, attacked him, basically.
We don't know exactly what happened. We know that Zimmerman was like driving in his truck. He sees Trayvon Martin
like
with
a
the
neighborhood
hoodie.
watch,
Yeah,
you know.
like walking through these yards, and then a confrontation ensued. He called 911 and said, "Hey, this guy looks pretty suspicious. He's like wearing a hoodie." And then they said, describe him to us. NBC takes that audio and removes the questioning from the 911. So you just hear Zimmerman being like, "He's suspicious. He looks black," even though that's not what he said. They asked him. A fight broke out for some reason. Trayvon had him on the ground, and he was doing what was called a ground and pound, where he was pummeling him.
Yeah,
and then
that's
Zimmerman,
when the ref will pull you off in MMA.
Zimmerman
for a
on the
reason.
ground.
Because that means the fight's over at that point.
Exactly.
Zimmerman on the ground pulled out his gun and fired into his chest. And then the media lied about everything.
Yeah.
And they claimed that he was a racist white guy profiling a black teenager, and it's like Zimmerman's Mexican. It's a Florida neighborhood watch thing. Trayvon was beating him up. You know what I think happened? I think Zimmerman was overzealous. I think he was probably like, "I'm neighborhood watch."
Yeah.
Trayvon Martin was like disrespected and insulted by it, said, "Screw you. Who are you? You can't tell me what to do." Two guys got into a fight. One guy had a gun. That's what happens. This narrative about a racist white guy, it's like Zimmerman wasn't even a cop. He was just some
totally
dude.
irrelevant.
So that's the narrative they run with. And now I saw this thing about it's like Gen Z and millennials running for office. And then it's one guy and he was like, "A racist white man killed Trayvon Martin." And that woke me up. And I'm like, this dude doesn't even read. He just got memes off the internet. He believes the memes, and now we've got to deal with governance based on memes.
He's having that dream where he woke up in his dream, but he's still sleeping, but he thinks he woke up. But he's like, "But why is reality still so weird? Because you're still sleeping, bro."
So look, these New York is
Well, what's
is,
this?
is
The
chaos,
reason
man.
I brought it up. Do you think that these big cities are going to eventually start laxing gun laws and be like, "We need the civilians to step up and help us police our city because the cops can't do it"? I saw Philadelphia, it almost looked like a raid where there's like 100 or more people on the street just screaming and fighting, and like 4 cops, I think, were present, completely incapable. I mean, at some point you tap the militia and you're like, "Yo,
bro.
we need help."
San Francisco, they were raiding those stores. They just run in and steal everything and run out.
Yeah, you can't.
Civilization break it down, man.
New York has a history of that too. They had, and the name is escaping me, but they would run around with the red on, something Angels, I think they were called, and they were basically really when Mayor started with a D before Giuliani, the city was a wreck. So the town came, the city, each borough had their own angels that would come, and they policed the subways. I remember them, actually.
Remember
they
the subway
policed the
vigilante?
subways, the streets. Yes,
That's coming back.
That's
scary.
And that was my point. This stuff will
Guardian Angels?
The Guardian Angels. Thank you. And one of them even ran for mayor once.
Yeah.
It was a
recently.
non-profit international volunteer organization.
They did the job. They would effect citizens' arrests and everything.
So did the mayor ask for their help?
Nope.
They just stood up and
They
were
just
like,
did it.
"Militia time."
Right,
you
they
know?
just
Well,
they
you
could
know
not
the
protect.
story of the subway vigilante, right?
I don't know. No.
So, do you know the story?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I
Wait.
was young, but I mean, it was big news.
You were in New York at the time?
Yeah,
Do you want to tell the story?
And no, I just remember this guy was running around, basically, being.
Well, there was one major incident.
It was one guy, right? It didn't turn out to be a group.
It was one guy, and he was on the subway, and I think he shot, what was it, 3 or 5 people. And then he was accused
Major
by the left of
protests.
being racist.
Yeah.
That he racially profiled some black men and shot him. He said he was being mugged, and so he defended himself with an illegal weapon. I think it might have been.
The gun was illegal.
It was illegal.
I think so. Yeah. So you had people both sides of the aisle, constantly outside.
But he was a
protesting.
folk hero in New York.
Yes.
The crime was so bad.
T-shirts.
Yep.
Everything.
People were just like, "Yay, fight back!" The crime was
Very
so bad.
unassuming white guy, like middle-aged, I think he was. I mean, very unassuming. And then people, of course, looked at him like, yeah, this guy's trying to be a hero. He was basically what they did to Richard Jewell. The left tried to do to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's Richard Jewell? What's his story?
He was a security guard in Atlanta when the bombing went off during, the Olympics or something, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and
They made a movie about it.
they did make a movie about him.
They tried accusing him of being the bomber.
Yeah,
When he was the guy who
unbelievable.
he was actually the hero.
He was a security guard.
He was the hero who cleared the area out. I mean, the media killed this man.
Yeah.
They killed him. They ran his health into the ground, and his heart literally gave up.
That's so
It
messed
was
up.
the Centennial Olympic Park
Yes,
bombing,
yeah.
1996 Summer Olympics
That's
in Atlanta.
right. It was security for the music that was going on there at the time, and he saw a suspicious pack. By the way, all the cops, there were feds around. They always mocked him, said he's the overzealous cop wannabe. He was a deputy in a neighboring town at one point, but he was right about that book pack. He was right. And he cleared everybody out, and he saved who knows how many lives. But the feds had nowhere to start, so they looked right at right at Richard Jewell. It really was the feds' fault before it was the media's fault.
This is one of the reasons the country's falling apart. I made a video, I think it's been 4 years, talking about why men are no longer helping women and children. I read this story about a guy who was in a store, and this female journalist, saw him walking down the aisle, and there's a little kid who's crying and alone. She looks to this guy. He stops, turns around, and immediately runs away. She sees people come up to help the kid. Once she realizes the kid's safe, she runs up to the guy and asks him, "Why didn't you help this kid?" And he says, "Are you kidding? I'd be accused of being the kidnapper or something. I'm not going anywhere near that kid."
Yeah.
And she was like, this man saw a child in distress and ran away because he would be accused. And so there was another story where a woman was being beaten in the subway and everyone just watched. And then she got really mad. She's like, "Why aren't the men standing up and protecting me?" It's like, because nobody wants to be involved, because the legal ramifications are you go to jail if you try and stop them. This was 4 years ago. Now look at New York City.
Yeah.
What would happen? You got these women smashing up this burger place or whatever, Bell Fries, whatever it is, and they're ripping things apart. They're throwing things at this guy. What would happen if he took any weapon to defend himself? They'd go crazier. They'd get even more angry. They'd attack him even more.
It'd be a frenzy.
The guys would then be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," and then more people would jump in. What if he then pulled out a gun? Someone does pull out a gun. You get a shootout. Then if this guy defended himself, not only that, the city would probably come after him. So he does nothing. These 3 women, I guess, have been arrested and charged over what happened. But
that's good.
But no, it's not.
I mean, it's something.
If you break into my place of business and you're doing this, I should be allowed to stop you.
For sure.
But
That's
you're
my
not.
opinion.
Not in New York.
It's
Not
like
New
the
York.
protests in the Summer of Love. Like, you had to just put up with your business
Had to
getting
deal with
attacked. for
Otherwise,
the
you were a
cause.
racist.
The cause is always more important than people.
There's this meme. They were like, people keep saying I understand that it's wrong that a black man lost his life, but it's wrong that buildings are being destroyed. And you should be saying, I understand it's wrong that buildings are destroyed, but it's worse that a black man lost his life. And I'm like, how about this? We all agree that innocent and unarmed people should not be killed. That doesn't justify you burning down or looting the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing to do with each other. This is the game they play. What's the argument for this stuff? The looting and the chaos and the destruction. What's the argument?
Yeah. Normally they have some kind of social justice angle that they want the greater good. There's no greater good here. There's $1.75 for extra sauce.
Why isn't the right leading with this story?
That's
Why is the right always just responding?
They're never. I was just gonna say they're never really proactive. Mm-hmm. That's what separates. I would say. I think why Ron DeSantis is really starting to gain traction with some people.
But even he's still reactive.
Yeah, he's
I like him, but
he's starting to get a little bit more reactive. But for the first year or so, he was seeming like he understood they got to call the shots. But the right doesn't do that. Even Trump, after a while, they started to pin him into a,
they're kind of addicted to that defensive posture and feeling beaten down.
Cowards. I'm willing to bet
women syndrome kind of thing.
Even if Republicans win in November, they're not going to do anything.
I don't think they will, Tim. Yep. Honestly, we've been down this road before, and I don't mean to get, I don't mean to be Johnny Raincloud to some of you at home, but look, 2010, give us the House, we'll repeal Obamacare.
Oh, yeah, right.
We need the Senate. Give it to us in 2014. We'll get it done. Then they finally get a president willing to sign it, and they fold.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.